And hello. So this is it, the very first ever episode of Hampton BossMoms, the video series. Why are we doing this? Well, because I really feel that there are so many awesome moms out here in the Hamptons, and we never really get to talk about what we do for a living so that we can actually network and really build our community where we live and don't always look to Manhattan or to where we came from, but actually really start doing something awesome out here. I moved here 7 years ago from Germany, Berlin. So that was quite the culture shock, I would say. And my background is in video and TV. So that's why this has to be a video series. And I have 2 kids. I live in Sag Harbor. And now let's get started with our very first guest. And she is the best example for why I'm doing this because, hello, Emily Onkey. Emily, we've seen each other, but I never knew what you're doing. So I'm going to leave the floor to you. And would you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do, who you are? This is Emily.
Thank you so much for having me. And I'm so glad you're doing this. I think a lot of us feel we're in the same boat. And there are so many wonderful women who have started businesses or really made an amazing impact in all sorts of ways. So this is a really cool forum together. I started in 2020 a company called Aplos, which is a non-alcoholic spirit. My co-founder, David Fudge, and I, we'd worked together in a prior life at a company called Bonobos, and really had kind of seen this evolution in the way we treat wellness and the way we think of wellness as a multifaceted part of every element of our lives. I think for me personally, I still drink wine. I think what I really wanted to do was pare it back. So I'm only drinking at the times when it's really an occasion I wanted. I noticed myself drinking a lot, either just out of the habit of it and really seeing it as a ritual to mark the end of my day, or a lot of times drinking at work events or dinners with friends because I felt like I was supposed to. And I think that's the narrative we've really wanted to propel is that, how do we normalize not drinking? And for us, that meant giving people alternatives that were both functional and really replicate the sensory experience of having a cocktail. So Aplos was born in the middle of COVID, which is a whole story in itself. But I really wanted to provide people with something that was sophisticated, something that you're proud to have at your bar at home, something you're not embarrassed to order at a restaurant. And give people something, again, that gives them both the ritual they enjoy from alcohol, but also that feeling of relaxation. We have 20 milligrams of broad spectrum hemp in each serving. You kind of get this, I think my dad described it best. He was like, I feel kind of floaty. And that is kind of what it does. You feel like you've had a glass of wine. But on the upside, it actually helps you sleep better. There are no calories. And you wake up feeling a lot more ready to tackle it.
I have to go back to the pandemic thing because I think most of us would have created something with even more spirit in it during the pandemic, but you went the other way. Why is that?
Well, I think the pandemic for a lot of us was a time when we were feeling a bit isolated and more than ever needed something to mark the passage of time. One of my friends had mentioned time felt like a flat circle, and it was true. It was just the same routine every single day. And everyone really leaned heavily on alcohol, to some extent because of the stress we're all under, but also really needed something that, again, marks the end of the day of we got through the at-home schooling, we got through the news cycle and whatever that was, found themselves kind of leaning on alcohol, but it had stripped out all of the social element. And so I think for me and a lot of people, we started to really question, why is this the thing I'm going to? I don't feel well when I wake up. I think alcohol affects my body a lot differently than it did even 5-10 years ago. And so it became a really poignant time for people to pull back and really think about the reason we drink. And I think so much of that was just because it's what we're used to. And it's so ingrained in the way we socialize as adults. So it was an interesting opportunity to really get people to question that and realize that's kind of weird. And it's kind of weird that if I don't drink, people are going to think I'm pregnant or that I have, an issue with alcohol when really maybe I just don't feel like it. And so it became a really neat opportunity to kind of say, what's another way that we can do? What's something else we can have that's socially acceptable, that provides the ritual we like, that provides the feeling we like, but kind of strips out a lot of the bad effects.
Well, and you said you're not embarrassed to order it. And it's actually also nothing embarrassing if you have it at your home, because here, this is a picture from your website, and I think it looks like a fashion brand is embracing a spirit, kind of, and I think that's the idea behind it. Or looks good, right? So, how did you come up with this design?
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that. That is the words we hope people will say, but we wanted to create something. I mean, how sad is like the mocktail category? And no one wants to order a non-alc drink when what you're ordering is like a soda and lime or a Shirley Temple. It's just kind of a sad category. And so we wanted to make something that had the sophistication level you find in a premium spirit, something that makes people dream, something that's really aesthetically driven, and something that really encourages everyone to like take a moment, exhale, unplug, and just have a moment of connection in the day. If that connection's with yourself or your partner or friends, we wanted something that, really speaks to that slightly slower lifestyle. So Aplos is a Greek word. It means simple. And that's really kind of been our design aesthetic and the ethos behind the brand, which is a lot about natural magic and taking the time to notice the minutia in our everyday lives that ultimately kind of add the most substance to our lives as a whole.
And that is actually also something that you see when you go to the website. There's two different ways to do this. One's calm, one's quite the opposite.
Exactly. So when we launched, we started with Aplos Calm, and we think about non-alc beverages. We will always make something that's functional. So something that gives you a physiological effect. Aplos Calm is the hemp product. So it's infused with 20 milligrams of broad spectrum hemp. I think of it as like Aplos Arise is when you want to go out, and Aplos Calm is when you want to chill out. And so Aplos Calm to me has been like my weekday ritual, right? Like I finish work, I'm hanging out with the kids. Instead of having a glass of rosé or wine, I have an Aplos instead. And you still get that kind of like exhale, relaxed feeling. And then Aplos Arise, we launched last December. So it's quite new and it's doing very well. We're really thrilled with the flavor profile, and the functionality behind it is actually 7 different adaptogens that are meant to provide a feeling of social lubrication. So when you walk into a room of people you don't know, a lot of times we like beeline to the bar to get a drink, and even holding the drink puts us at ease. The idea behind Arise is working with elements that are naturally found in nature. So things like moringa tree extracts and theanine, guarana, vitamin B, all the things that kind of help you to feel less inhibited, but also energized.
Let's backtrack a little, and because we cannot not talk about the whole mom part. So quickly tell me again, how many kids you have, how old are they, and where in the Hamptons are you located?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have 2 kids. We live in East Hampton. We moved out, probably like a lot of people who will join this group. We moved out during the pandemic and just loved it and felt like we'd stumbled backwards into a really great setup community for our family. My son is in 4th grade and my daughter is in pre-K. And we felt, I think, overall with the transition out here, I think that sense of community and friendships and kind of something that has been the most rewarding part of living out here. And I think we're really lucky to have a community of such accomplished, interesting people. So that's been a really cool experience for us.
So when you go back to when you moved here, because we've been talking a lot about this, how you come here, you had a career in the city or in Berlin in my case, and then you come out here and suddenly you have kids and now you got to reinvent yourself. And of course you always feel like, well, in the city I could go 10,000 places and I could meet a million people. And here it's harder. So how was your start? Like, what is something that you remember was very intense or special to you?
Yeah, I think the transition for me was when we were forced to slow down over COVID. It got me at least out of that momentum of life that was like, what's next? And like feeling like you're always kind of, I don't know, preparing for the next thing or where to go. And it put us into a slower path. And I think ironically, a lot of the brand kind of stemmed from that idea. I was like, this is wonderful. I felt better in a lot of ways, and that saying no to things felt, less stressful. And then I think being buoyed by a smaller community where you get to see people more frequently and it's under less formal terms has been really special. So I think the sense of reinventing myself out here, I mean, I don't want to speak poorly of the suburbs, but I think my husband and I always had this like fear of like, we can't move to the suburbs, like it'll be boring. And so we'll stay in the city. And so I think that was the coolest part to us moving out here was like, it's not the suburbs. It doesn't feel like that at all. So kind of got the best of both worlds. That's how we feel about it. It's been really positive for us.
So starting your business now, if you look back onto that, like what was the moment when you realized I'm onto something? This is something that is going to go beyond like the talks at night and the brainstorming, but something that I'll actually put out there.
Yeah, I worked in fashion prior and I worked in beauty, and I loved both of those industries. But I think what we found when we really felt like we were on to something, shortly after we launched, we started getting feedback from customers. And it was, we'd been like, oh, our customer is going to be this like yoga, vegan, urban woman, coastal. And we started hearing from like Donna, who's 55 from Ohio, and Nancy, and, and Mike, and people that like were so far out of the target group that we thought we were going to be speaking to. And I think that's when we realized we were onto something that wasn't just targeted for a wellness mindset, but that actually most people wish they drank less than they do. And so we'd kind of touched on this like sensitivity where we're helping people, shame is too strong a word, but we're helping people feel proud of the decisions that they made both in the moment and the next day. So, everyone has a unique relationship with alcohol, whether it's super healthy or not. And I think that I realized that we were onto something bigger just when we started hearing people's personal stories that just ran the gamut from, like cancer survivors to one of the first ones we received was a woman. And I think Dave and I both like teared up reading her message, but her husband had early onset Alzheimer's. And she was like, I've been drinking too much because it's really hard to like manage with him. And this product has helped me be more patient and kind, and like just hearing people really personal stories. And also, the fun, lighthearted things where people are like, I lost 4 pounds because I'm not drinking, it's like it's really fun across the board. But that's been something that's been really motivating to me. And also that was the moment, seeing the disparity of like all these beautiful stories, realizing that, everyone kind of has a different reason for this and they're all really interesting.
So starting something like this, it's a ton of work. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. And you have 2 little children. And I think most of us will relate. And we just talked about this. Like I came home and my son is not in preschool, but at home because, of course, they called because he got sick. So things happen, and trying to manage it all is really difficult. And trying to pour yourself into an idea like that is a challenge when you're also a full-blown mom. So how did you what was your hack to make it work? How did you do it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really glad you asked that. That's been the biggest challenge. I mean, really, since I've had kids. And I think I'm really lucky. My husband and I wouldn't say this has been like a seamless path, but we've really been able to reach a place where my career ambition is treated the same as his. And I think that that's been something, it's hard for us. It was not easy for us to get there. And I'm very grateful to him for that. I think I had put a lot of pressure on myself for what I was supposed to be as a wife and a mom, and what tasks and things in our life I was supposed to own. And so you can't do all of that and start a business like this. And I think giving myself permission not to put all that pressure on myself was really the starting point, because I made a lot of assumptions about, what my role was supposed to be in that relationship. It's been a really cool path where I think we've just reached a really powerful place where I feel like between the two of us, we have reached an equilibrium in ownership and responsibility. And then we also, have been able to figure out the things that we're not going to manage and we're going to outsource, and like, that's okay. So it's been a collaboration for sure. I think that's the hardest part for women, and I have so much respect, and I feel so close to my female founder friends because I know we're all in those trenches together, and it's hearing each other's solutions and challenges, and it just like has been such a buoying experience. But I just feel so much respect for women doing all of these things. It's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a whole topic in itself. I think I've been talking about this a lot, that default parent thing, no matter what you do, is somehow still happening. And again, people called me this morning. And then thankfully, and I'm where you are at with my husband, thankfully. So I was able to call him and be like, I can't, like I'm in the middle of a meeting. Can you please go? And he went and got him. And I don't know, a few years ago, I don't think that would have happened, but we started working together. Like we both, like I joined him in real estate and we had these conversations too. I was like, okay, but now doing this just as much as you. So can't just be that the moment it's kid related, I have to take a step back. So we have to talk about it. So yes, and it actually does come down to talking about it.
It's such a healthy conversation to have. And I think it's been cool for us to have this conversation, not in the moment too much. It's just like when you're like having a relaxing time and can like talk through them very like logistically, not emotionally, but I feel really lucky now. And I think that our generation of women growing up in business, think of how quickly things have changed since, I graduated in college in 2003. And even just the way women are regarded in the workforce, it's so cool to see how much it's changed and so quickly. So those are important conversations to have.
There really are. We had a meeting with some boss moms this morning, and it was fantastic because everybody introduced herself. And again, most of us know each other from meeting at the playground, at drop off, pick up, whatever. And it was just, everyone was like, oh my God, can we please exchange numbers? This is fantastic. I never knew you do that. And I meet this. So that alone. And it was also inspiring because yes, we had some intense moments where we're talking about letting go of a career to be more with your kids and doing that step and embracing it while also knowing, okay, there's something else going to come. It's probably not going to be corporate anymore. But this going through this, finding yourself while having kids, finding something you really love and that on top of being out here. And you said that grateful, yes, because you move out here and you feel like, well, everything's in the city. Got it. When I moved here, I was like, literally, I got pregnant 5 minutes after I moved here. So I was like, well, we got to get an Airbnb in the city because obviously I have to have the child in the city. And my husband was like, what are you talking about? Like, how are we going to do that? And I had both my kids in Southampton Hospital, and it was like going to a Marriott in the 90s. And I was the only one. And now I listen to stories from the city and I'm like, So quite a few good things about that.
Yeah.
If you would think of a message for other women trying to start their business, like trying to go ahead with an idea they have, what would that message be like? What is the first thing you would tell them?
For me, it was I have an amazing co-founder partner. So David and I feel incredibly lucky because we work really well together and we complement each other really well. So if there's a prior colleague who, you had that type of like homeostasis, just symbiotic kind of skill sets, I think that's a great way to do it because it's hard and I don't know, most of it's managing your emotion. It's very personal when you start your own company. And I think the highs feel really high and the lows feel really low. And there's great advice I had from a prior boss who was a founder that, nothing is ever as good or as bad as it seems. And I think that is true. And it's been good to remember that. I think it's really just taking it step by step because it can feel overwhelming when you think of all the balls you could be juggling and should be juggling and all of the kind of mountains of work and obstacle to get through to your path. So I think for me personally, I would get overwhelmed by that. So I try to just really take this small steps approach to getting to a final goal. And then when you actually get to look back over the last 2 years, I feel so proud of what we've built, little by little. And I think the other key is staying really focused. It's easy. I've worked for a lot of founders. I think it's easy to get this like bright, shiny object syndrome and kind of stop or take on too much. Yeah, take on too much and not really be able to execute it at the level that it needs to be done. So we've tried to be super focused and just do a few things and do them really, really well.
So what's next for your company, for you?
We're in the final stages of our Series A fundraising. We're doing some product development around new products that we're hoping to launch late Q4, early Q1 of 2024. And in the near term, we're building out our team. We're 9 employees now. I think we're going to be doubling our team over the next 6 months. I'm going to be doing a lot of recruiting and trying to find some great people right now.
So walk me through a day. Like how does one of your work days look like?
I do kid drop off 3 days a week. So, and then my husband does 2. And so they're at Ross. So I go over to Ross. I usually stop in Sag Harbor for a coffee. I come back. I have an executive coach who has instilled in me the importance of a meditation and not looking at my phone until I sit down at my desk to work. And that's been such a healthy boundary to set up. So I do 5, I'm supposed to do, well, I probably should do a longer meditation, but I'm like, 5 minutes is good. So I do a 5-minute meditation.
More than none.
I was like, this is, I'm getting the vibe. So it's good. And then I do a gratitude journal and then I start working. So I'm usually working by 9:15 or so. I spend a lot of time on Zoom. David, my co-founder, and I, talk a ridiculous amount, a lot during the day. So we kind of were in a similar screen by screen setup like this. But we do a lot of, I get to work with our creative team. I oversee demand planning. So I work with our head of sales. I work really closely with our content creator. My favorite part is working with creatives. Like I just love the brainstorming and kind of the great ideas that come out of those collaborations. A lot of meetings like that, a lot of creative reviews. I tend to wrap up. Well, usually Ren, my daughter, will come in when she gets home from school. So I get like the cutest little visitor in the middle of the day, which I'm happy. I'm happy. I try not to be very formal about meetings. So my kid make a lot of appearances on, inside of my screen or in the background. And then I'm usually done. I mean, I try to wrap by 6:30 and we'll have dinner. I don't cook. So that's also a nice thing to have on my plate. But we have dinner and then I do, bedtime 7:30ish with my daughter. And then my son and my husband will usually watch, we watch these different like survival type, like the Jimmy Chin documentary type extreme adventure shows with Karsten, my son. So that's been our first shtick lately.
Well, that sounds like a very good day. And the meditation thing is fantastic. We should definitely talk about that some more at some point, because I think it's something that's super important and healthy, and we should all try to do it. And just as you say, I mean, even 5 minutes, it's just, if it becomes a habit, it's like super healthy.
When we're in the city, I don't know how you, or what, like I think a lot of people had a commute where you would walk or you were on the subway and it was kind of a transition time. And now working from home, that the goal with that meditation window is to give yourself that transition phase as well. So you're not jumping from like, work stress and then carrying that into the house with me for bedtime.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Wow.
Yeah. It's a good combo.
How do you build your network out here?
I think it's been such a fun part moving out here is how welcoming everyone is. And I think there was such a flood of everyone coming out at the same time where everyone was really open. And you always read those articles. It's like, it's impossible to make friends after 30. And this couldn't have been this couldn't have been further from the truth out here. I feel like it's just been a really welcoming environment and, with really smart, accomplished people that are exciting to know and that have a lot in common with one another, whether or not they know each other. So I think it's kind of happens really organically, which is the best way to meet people. I feel lucky too. I think there are a lot of other like women founders out here who have, found each other like the coffee this morning. Like, it's just so nice to be able to meet up, and if it's moms, through school or through friends of friends. I think those networks happen really organically and kind of jump immediately to like a nice substantive level, which is really
So if you'd have to finish the sentence, for me, Hampton's Boss Moms is.
For me, Hampton's Boss Moms are women who are doing what they choose to do in their life. And if that's, being fully stay at home with their kids, or starting, running company, or being a C-level executive in a huge corporation, whatever path that is, I think a Hampton's Boss Mom is someone who is able to have those choices and make it happen for themselves, whatever form.
So now, of course, I have to ask, if we want to order your products, how do we do this?
Oh, yeah. We'll be at Amber Waves this summer. And then we're at S&S Coffee Shop in the Springs, which is the best little shop if you haven't been. I love it so much. And then otherwise, you can order online at Aplos.world. I have a code if you want to use it. It's Emily15 if you want to give it a try and get 15% off of your order. We'll ship it. We just ship directly to your house.
Well, thank you very much, Emily. Thank you for jumping into this with me at first as the very first guest. And I really think I already took away a lot from it. Thank you very much. And we will link your website in the show notes. Well, again, thank you very much. I appreciate you taking the time. Appreciate it a lot. And I really hope that we'll be seeing a lot more of each other. I think that. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.